Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with Season 7, Episode 11 of our weekly Q&A videos. If you're on the video right now on YouTube, you can check out the links in the description to access this on all the major podcasting platforms. But getting straight into the questions, the first one comes from, I don't know if this doesn't look like a name, like a human name, I should say. It's Zuexel, right?
So I feel like that in Mandarin Chinese names, there's a lot more Zs and Xs, but what follows an X is usually an I. So I'm not sure that actually.
I might just be ignorant here. I don't know how to pronounce that, and
neither do I.
I don't. It doesn't feel like there's any pronunciation that I could make that would feel wrong, but like
you want to spell
potentially
it
correct. Yeah, I just did. Zuexel.
All right, there you go.
They say, can someone tell me what crit damage is?
Okay, so the easy answer is it's boosted damage. In-game, you can increase the chance of it happening as well as the amount that it's boosted. So that's sort of straightforward, right?
So it's a bigger number.
Yes, so it's something that happens sometimes, and it can vary from when there's no adjustments to 1.5 times.
Yeah.
As much damage to 2.5 times, or even higher when you've got this character with the right passes like Flashpoint Team.
Yeah, so it's just based on two stats, which is crit damage and crit chance, and those can be influenced by augmentations or gear, and it's just extra damage that you deal sometimes, and how often it is based off of your crit chance, and how much it is based off of your crit damage, and it's a multiplier on your basic damage.
But all right, so what's interesting to me and why I thought it was worthwhile addressing in this talk is that there's a lot of language that is we've played it so long. There's certain things that we take for granted, and I recognize that I have a blind spot. But this feels like such a fundamental thing at the beginning, like at the is this something that's common in other games?
Yeah, critical hits are common in most games, I think. I wouldn't say most games, actually. And they don't always use that language, but almost every game has damage, has a way of dealing extra damage by doing something special.
Oh, like a headshot.
Yeah, like a headshot. Exactly. That's what I was thinking, where in, shooting games, you wouldn't necessarily call that a critical hit, right?
But it functions the same way.
But it is the same thing, basically.
So it was like when I was talking a week or two ago about Aunt May, where she'd have a special move against characters that were bigger than her.
Shot, yeah.
Like, no, it was,
well, there are other games that actually have that, too. There's a game called Sniper Elite, where when you shoot, sometimes it goes into like an X-ray camera, where it takes a third-person like cinematic view, and so you can see people getting shot through the skull or have. But they also have like skull, heart, like lungs, that sort of stuff. But they also have groin shots, yes, where you can shoot through someone's testicle. And in one of the games they have Hitler, and they've modeled him based off of the rumor that he only had one testicle. So if you shoot him a groin shot, you might miss half the time. It's only modeled. He only has one testicle model, is what I'm saying.
Oh, so you'll see it hit, but it'll hit just the one. And
there's literally only one. Yeah, so they have that bit of potential historical accuracy.
Yeah, it just strikes me. Not even thinking necessarily in game, but there's so many things that we do where there's a special language, right? Like it's almost like a
dialect.
It's the language of community that can sometimes help. It makes it easier to identify other members of your community, but it also can be very exclusionary, right? Depending on how hard it is to pick up stuff.
That's true.
I just thought it was interesting that it happens at such a level. I can't remember the last time anybody even asked something like this. It's usually like a higher level kind of question.
Yeah.
But I guess I shouldn't be surprised that there's probably, at least at some level, people who are coming to these kind of fighting games pretty fresh, because
it's mobile and it's free.
It's mobile, it's free, and it's comic book stuff.
Yeah.
So there isn't necessarily like that same sort of awareness, I guess, that it's again, it's something that it's just weird to me. It just strikes me that it never occurred to me that these kind of things would need to be explained, but it totally makes sense.
Yeah, because somebody had to explain it to somebody at some point.
Right. And I don't even know why, for all the other things that we try so carefully. I mean, that was one of the hardest things about creating, back when there were a lot more glitches.
Yeah.
And creating those instructional videos. The hardest part...
Oh, is not presupposing any knowledge.
Right. And it's we haven't had to for a while because I guess it's been so long since we've actually had to do an explanation. We assume, I think a lot of people when they come to us at this point now, the game is so mature and it feels like it's on its last legs.
I was sort of expecting nobody knew what was ever coming in, and it was just an increasingly dwindling audience of people who had been here for a while, but evidently that's not the case.
Yeah, it's just interesting.
Mm-hmm. So there we go. Our next question comes from Hanzo Hasashi, and they say, Antimatter Sinestro is the best Sinestro in the game. I said question. It's not a question. It's a statement. But that's fine. We all make mistakes sometimes.
It's a pretty low bar, right? Like, there's only... I guess there's a bronze Sinestro, there's a silver Sinestro.
Like, the third worst Sinestro?
Alright, so if we go by the assumption that the gold Sinestros are the best, because their stats are the highest, and they have better passives.
Oh no, fourth worst Sinestro.
Why? How many are there?
2 golds, a bronze, and a silver, right?
So 4.
Yeah, so he's the fourth worst.
Oh, if he's the best. Oh, you're assuming he's the best.
He
might be the best. Maybe he's not.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because neither of the gold Sinestros came with the start of the game. When the game was first released, there was the bronze, there was the silver, and there was no gold. And there was that one first sort of big update. Remember when that first update hit and they added new cards to the store?
Yeah.
Like, Crypto Lex Luthor was not original.
That was the first one before multiplayer was added, right?
I can't even remember now whether it was with multiplayer or right before multiplayer.
Because the big update was 2.0, and that had multiplayer and a bunch of gear and new characters and stuff.
It might have been. I have to go back and look at maybe some of the videos.
That's all right.
The news. It's just interesting to me that these are both relatively new. Sinestro was clearly not a priority.
Yeah.
And that both the Sinestros, they have their passive centers around tagging in and tagging out.
Mm-hmm.
So the Antimatter Sinestro. So this goes back to the last video where we were talking about like Antimatter Sinestro used to be amazing when the League of Assassins gear was broken or just bugged. And so Green Lantern Sinestro was pretty good at the time when he came out because his stats were high. It was higher than a lot of the golds that were already in the store because he was new. Yeah. And he gets a damage boost to specials or super against an opponent that tags in. But it's not like you can really force it. So those are the wrong kind of fights for us because it means that they have to drag on a bit. Mm-hmm. And Antimatter Sinestro, so you want to actually have them be a tank, be able to stick around for a long time, but that also means that their offensive potential is decreased too.
Yes, that's for Green Lantern Sinestro.
Antimatter Sinestro, the special one, forces the tag out and drains 2 bars of power, which is pretty good. But I mean, there's so many. It's a much more interesting discussion, I guess, if we look at some of the skins where there's way more different characters. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, the 2 biggest I think are
Batman and Superman.
Yeah. So
is there anybody else who has a ton?
Wonder Woman has a lot.
Harley Quinn has a decent number.
Harley Quinn has a lot.
She has 3 golds.
She has a bronze, a silver. She's got Arkham Knight Harley Quinn, Suicide Squad Harley Quinn, Arkham Harley Quinn.
4 golds, animated.
Animated Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
So she's interesting too, and I think. All right, so the biggest number I think is probably Batman. Who do you feel is like the best Batman?
The best Batman. Well, when he first came out, it was definitely Arkham Origins Batman.
Oh,
but it's not anymore. But he's still quite good. He's still up there, I think.
Okay, so that's interesting too. If you think back to that, when the game first started, Arkham Origins Batman was the most expensive Batman.
Yeah.
His passive, having 2 bars of power, seems like not a lot now, but that was
spectacular.
It was pretty spectacular.
He has a special place in my heart as a Batman.
He was fast. He hit hard. He had great stats, and when when Ra's al Ghul's Scimitar was first released, he could start with 3 bars of power.
It's probably Flashpoint, right?
I mean, based on how we play, I think probably Flashpoint.
And then after that, maybe Arkham Knight?
I think Arkham Knight is also pretty good in a lot of ways because if you gear him properly, he can be anybody. Like, it depends on how you value versatility.
That's true.
And adaptability depending on who you're facing.
But I'd say probably first place is Flashpoint, just for us at least. And then I would say after that, probably Arkham Knight. And then after that, probably Arkham Origins.
Yeah. You know what's funny? Long time ago, there was one guy who was on the boards, I can't remember his name now, who used to do videos on motoring through multiplayer. and he would do it with Arkham Origins Batman, and he would do it with all basic attacks. I mean, this was before Tantu Totem.
Yeah.
So Arkham Origins Batman, what he has as an advantage over Arkham Knight Batman is that his he has short latencies and short refractory periods. So that he's really good at juggling people and mashing them without giving them a chance to hit back.
Yeah.
What about, all right, so Superman. Who's the best Superman?
Oh, God. I don't even... What do you think?
I think
I did Batman,
Injustice 2 Superman is probably... I can't imagine... I mean, we probably use New 52 Superman on more teams.
Yeah.
Mainly because he's got synergy and it makes the team interesting. But as far as straight up, like, he's got good stats. He's got a great passive, like the shield that reloads. He's got the passive that boosts his damage and his health.
You know who sucks for us? I'll say who's the worst. I think Godfall. I don't like his passive. Because it's just the heal, right? Is there a worse Superman?
No, that's Prison. You're thinking Prison.
Oh, Prison. Sorry, not Godfall. Not
Godfall is
Godfall.
the one that when he generates power when he blocks, right?
Yeah, sorry, no. I was thinking Prison. I don't know why. I was thinking the orange jumpsuit, and then I don't know why I thought that was Godfall.
Yeah. Oh, you know what's funny? I just caught myself. I mean, I didn't catch myself. I said it. That I think of him as the guy who blocks and generates power. When technically his passive is blocks and reflects a bit of damage.
Oh, but it just happens to generate power, yeah.
Right. All right, so how weird is that? Like, it's that, I mean, we think about Master's Death Card the same way, right? Like, despite what the passive actually says, the
main thing is staggering the enemy and getting power.
Yeah, so it's funny to me that what makes him really good is something that they don't actually say about him until you play
it's not explicit. It's subtextual.
Right. All right, so the most important question, actually, who's the best Flash? Because there are actually...
there's a lot of Flashes.
There are two... is there another character that... Green Lantern. So there's two bronzes.
Yeah.
They both have two bronzes, a silver, and for the longest time, there was only one gold that was Elseworld Flash. And that the stats were really low.
Elseworld Flash used to be better. I would say if his passive was the old passive, he'd still probably be the best just in terms of enjoyment.
Yes, so that, I mean, you're sort of hinting at Reverse Flash and Metahuman Flash coming after.
Yeah.
And being really... I mean, Reverse Flash for sure was... At one point, he was kind of overpowered.
Yeah, pretty great.
And they nerfed... What is it about Flash is that they... Because it's not even like Elseworld Flash needed to be nerfed. It's not like at the way you face him defensively that Reverse Flash needs to be nerfed. Yeah. So I guess I should say explicitly instead of hinting at it, Reverse Flash used to get a bigger speed boost from his specials.
Yeah, and Elseworld Flash used to interrupt enemy specials when his passive activated.
So the way they are now, who do you think? I mean, so Elseworld Flash still has the advantage of being relatively good for how low his stats are. So what you can do is get good matchups in a team with low-level golds, and you don't have to end up facing a lot of difficult, high-geared teams.
That's true.
Reverse Flash still has a good defense ability about rinsing the cellular regeneration, rinsing the damage over time stuff. His juggling isn't nearly as good as it used to be. And Metahuman Flash has a really kind of cool passive. And I think he's got the best stats even.
Probably Metahuman. I don't know, though. I'm not sure for this. Because you're the Flash expert on our
I gotta tell you, I mean, they've done enough to weaken the Flashes, and Metahuman Flash, in terms of just everyday play and facing against him as a defensive threat, I think Metahuman Flash is probably the best. I still feel like Elseworld Flash, because I don't know if there's enough separating. None of them are really sort of like the top tier characters. Metahuman comes close because when his passive engages, he becomes like a basic damage beast. But I think if you look at just how much the character design, how much fun it is to play, I still like Elseworld Flash, even if they screwed up his passive so it no longer interrupts specials.
Okay.
And that might be just a bit of nostalgia because we spent so much time with that one Elseworld Flash, Containment Doomsday, and Green Lantern team.
And this is the episode of comparisons because we have another question from Why So Serious. And they say, which Killer Frost is better, Prime or Regime? And I think for this, it would be probably best to start out by reading out their stats and then reading out their passives. So Prime, Killer Frost Prime, has 850 attack and 1200 health. And the passive is Best Served Cold, which dampens all opponents' power generation by 50%. And Regime Killer Frost has 700 attack and 1,250 health. And her passive is Polar Vortex. Killer Frost surrounds her opponents in bitter cold, reducing all healing effects by 90%. Upon special attack activation, opponent's power generation and speed are reduced by 50%.
Okay, so straight up numbers, they've got on. I mean, it's not the greatest comparison because damage goes up less as you level up and promote and stuff, right? So the end numbers, you get more numbers out of the health.
But health is also less valuable because damage is applied on literally every hit, whereas health is only applied once to your bar.
So Prime has 150 more damage, but 50 less health. To me, that's a clear winner. If they were the same number, I would prefer Prime stats because it's damage loaded.
Yeah, and permanent power gen dampening is actually quite useful. If you're fighting against Master of Death card, that's great. If you are just trying to... you can be a lot more confident and a little bit more sort of loosey-goosey with your gameplay because you don't need to be as worried about getting hit by specials.
Right. So out of the two passives, the power dampening versus the healing, like power dampening by 50%, it feels like is way better than healing dampening even by 90%.
Yeah, and so the real question is special attack activation, opponent's power generation speed are reduced by 50%. That's great if you're there. Right? If you're if you're playing actively, if you're in the combat and using specials, then that's great.
But Killer Frost Prime, I mean, even though it doesn't say to me, this is one of those passives when it says that, it's kind of lame because it's really just the special. And Killer Frost Prime's special also does that too.
Does it do the power dampening too?
I don't know if it does. It does.
Does it? Because then it doubles up?
So then you get, unless you've got some sort of boost, you got almost no power.
Okay, I didn't realize that it also did the power again.
I'm just curious. You know what? I'm just going to look up really quick what Killer Frost special one, whether it says anything, because even though it does it, I don't even know if it says it. And it might be, again, one of those things where it's not explicitly stated, but once you play it, then you get a sense of, oh yeah, you do your special one, totally frozen.
So we do like Prime better for a lot of reasons. The damage is better than health. Stats are slightly higher on the balance. The dampens power generation is better. You don't actually end up getting a lot of opportunity for the enemies to heal if you're playing the way that we play most often.
Right. Or even yourself, you don't get a chance. You don't need to heal.
Yeah.
So Killer Frost serves. So Cold as Ice is Killer Frost Prime's first special, and that's Killer Frost serves up an icy treat on the rocks, applies deep freeze. So it doesn't say it. I'm pretty sure it.
But deep freeze is
Yeah, so it's even like down to nothing unless you've got a boost, or I guess it'll depend on whether you're playing offline or multiplayer as far as how much you've got left. Oh, and since I'm here, I can even look up and count the number of Harley Quinns. So there's one. Holy moly, there is a lot of Harley Quinns.
Oh wait, that's more than 4 golds, isn't there?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
We
were
gold.
4 golds.
No, we missed 4 Harley
Quinns.
Isn't there?
No, there were 4 Harley Quinn golds. 1 bronze and 1 silver.
Okay.
Because the silver is because it's ordered by name.
Oh yeah.
And it's not ordered by.
Yeah, I missed the silver in the middle. Okay. I'm too far away from the device, and your brightness is very low. That's neither here nor there. So we have our next question, which comes from My Ass, and they say, "Hi BDCKR."
From where?
From My Ass.
That's their name?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they say, "Hi BDCKR, I really love your videos and I wish you to keep up with what you're doing. I have an issue regarding Survivor mode. It is stuck on the Diablo Killer Croc set. It doesn't update. When I wipe out all data and start the game again, it shows, for the moment, the 4th world set gear. I connect using WBID and it shows me once again the Killer Croc set. If I cash out, I only get Killer Croc set gears. Do you have any idea where this bug could come from? Thanks again for all your videos and your help. We love it."
All right, so I don't really have an answer for this. And
unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, what I suspect is some related to it might be that there's a bad connection to the server, and that happens sometimes when an account's suspended because it doesn't update from the server.
Yeah.
But do you remember when there was a year where Android, we were getting nothing except for Suicide Squad companion gears?
Yeah, it's a very long time.
That was, I mean, and that's the clue to make me think that's it, because the default in the game, if you don't have an internet connection,
is Suicide Squad.
It's Suicide Squad. And it's that the server sends a message to override that and give you different gears.
Yeah, so, I mean, you say wipe out all data. If you're not banned, if you're banned, that's probably why. if you're not banned, just the next troubleshooting step, right, would be to uninstall and reinstall the game.
Yeah, but they said that they log into their WBID, right? So
yeah.
The problem is when your account is suspended, your data is there, but it never gets updated.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's something else it could be doing. I mean, there's definitely something corrupted, because even if, I mean, it's I remember how painful that was. Even if you're connected to the internet, I guess there should be something else that happens, because you still get your challenge, the new challenges, right? You just can't get the online stuff. So I wonder.
I don't know. So we're not 100% sure. Unfortunately, we can't. Yeah. We're not super helpful for this one.
But it was, it makes me. I mean, that was one frustrating year and a bit.
It was.
Where
really sucked.
Yeah. So no, nothing more to say about that. It was just I'm reminiscing.
Sorry. Next question comes from God's Disciple. So we've got a lot of fun names this time, actually.
Yes.
Why do you guys don't use your Nth Metal?
I guess a few different reasons.
Yeah, so we've used some.
We used enough to get Batman Ninja Catwoman up to Elite 3, which puts her stats in line with the kind of goals that we like to use that give maximum battle points, which is not quite the highest level, but high enough.
Yeah.
And it lets her upgrade her passive, which gives a longer, and you're seeing her right now, which gives a longer duration to her passive, when she tags in.
Yeah, so the minimum threshold for getting all the stuff we need to.
Right. And let's face it, to me, the other medals just kind of suck.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of reason to play them or promote them, for me at least, to higher level. And the point where I think I'd change my mind, I'd rather have the Nth Metal ready. So this goes back to the airplane mode glitch and how the refund glitch, and how people often ask, well, how many times should I buy before I do the glitch, right? Or just like how much should I spend before I decide to reset it?
Mm-hmm.
And it comes back to how much you value your time. And I think it's a little bit influenced by how the game started too, because they've made adjustments in some of the currencies and the costs sometimes, so that if at the point where it's worth going into the buying Nth Metal packs and resetting it to make sure we get what we want, I want to make sure that we've got enough that we don't have to reset it so many times, so that if we're going to buy, we'll feel like we can afford to buy, 5 packs instead of just resetting after 1.
Yeah, it feels nicer.
Yeah.
And practically it saves time.
So I guess the one thing that I've learned is through other updates that they've made adjustments. Because do you remember? All right, so at one point when we first got gears, and people used to shatter extra gears as soon as they got them to save shards, and they'd prefer to save shards instead of extra gears.
Yeah.
And then there was an update where they changed the game so that you could get more shards from the same gears if you promoted them.
And it almost seemed like they had made a mistake because the economy felt so broken. You got so many for fully maxed out gears, and you got more than it even said you were getting. And we spent probably an hour just destroying gears, just shattering gears.
Yeah. Well, that was when we were trying to max out some. I mean, at this point,
it took us so long. Actually, I remember that, where we were just desperately shattering gears.
So it's also harder too when you don't have a lot of good gears and you're in it. I mean, it feels like it's a marathon basically, but you feel like you're sprinting towards trying to get some of the gears to be really good to get the maximum fusion.
Yeah.
But here's the other point: is it used to, for the new metal characters, it used to cost 44 copies to max out the metal character at Elite 7.
Yeah.
And then they did an update and it cost only 25.
Yeah. So
I think it makes a lot more sense to spend it when you're ready and prepared instead of trying to spend it as soon as possible.
And there's one exception, right? One notable exception to this, which is going from cash packs to...
From power credit packs.
From power credit packs to cash packs.
Yeah.
So we've had a couple examples where resources became worth more per unit, right? For having saved them.
Yeah.
And one notable example where not even just became worth less, became for getting certain types of characters. Literally not a valuable credit, not purchasable.
Right. Yeah, so if they ever come back, those power credit packs made a huge difference in how...
Early to mid-game play for collecting people. Yeah. Seriously.
it is a shame because it feels like they did a really good job with Injustice to make the progressions incremental enough that it wasn't such a struggle to keep on playing. Like it really encouraged the grind in a way without feeling like you were grinding.
I need to say, you acted appropriately surprised. I didn't even realize that the example of it going in the other direction was in the notes. I said that unprompted and then read it in the notes right after.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It was it's a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
So it feels like it was a stair that they built very carefully. Each step was a nice incremental
for
increase.
Good progression.
Yeah. And then what they've done is they've taken out a couple of the steps by taking out all those power credit packs,
which is how a lot of in-app purchase things go, like on purpose. Is they're supposed to be a little bit frustrating, and you're supposed to be able to pay to bypass the unpleasantness, basically,
right,
of an otherwise good game, which is unfortunate that they've gone that route. Yeah. So there we go. Our next question comes from Jose Morales, and they say, "Great job, guys. I have a question. Who's your favorite superhero, and why that superhero is your favorite? I'm from Guatemala. Love your content. Keep up the good videos. Stay safe." So first off, thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah. Hello, Guatemala. We're saying hi back to you from Canada.
Mm-hmm. So favorite superhero.
So the implied part with superhero, right, is that these are fictional. And I think that makes the most sense because real people will always disappoint you no matter how good or super you think they are.
That's a surprisingly sobering thought to interject into this question.
So, superhero.
Are you okay?
It's a weird time, isn't it?
It is. My favorite superhero comic is Miracle Man. I don't know if Miracle Man's my favorite superhero.
So this is it, right? So there's a difference between a really, really good story versus the kind of emotional attachment people have to, say, a sports team, a sport ball team, even when all the original members that they watched when they were young are gone, and the only thing that's the same is maybe the team logo.
Yeah.
Oh, the place. Sometimes not even the place. Sometimes a sports, like...
But a lot of times people not following a team anymore comes from it moving.
So Seattle Supersonics, I'm just thinking of NBA right now. Seattle Supersonics went to Oklahoma City. Yeah. So there's still people who were fans of the Supersonics, who were fans of Oklahoma City. There's a few like football teams that did that in the NFL.
That's true. So it's really just the name, not even the place then.
Right. And I was going to say the mascot or the symbol or the whatever.
But not always that either.
They always there's a bunch of updates, right? Yeah. So I don't know. I guess there's two ways to look at it. So Miracle Man, I think absolutely.
Yeah. Favorite superhero book.
Alan Moore is a brilliant writer. Did a lot of interesting things to examine the kind of superhero stories that used to be taken for granted were written the same way for decades. What's my favorite comic then?
One of my most recent favorite superheroes, and he's not a recent hero, but it's a recent portrayal, is Miles Morales.
The Spider-Verse.
Into the Spider-Verse.
Right.
And I know he's not a recent hero, but that was pretty great. I really liked the way that his character was portrayed in that.
Right. I'm trying to think if there's any other... If I'm going to go answer that question both ways, what's my favorite... What is the comic book that I've pushed on you the most? When you or was it Miracle Man? It might have been
probably Miracle Man. Probably something by Alan Moore, right? You might be able to make an argument for somebody from Watchmen.
You know what though? I didn't find a lot of those characters that sympathetic. I mean,
that's true.
They were all kind of gross a little bit.
Yeah, that definitely wouldn't have been one of your favorite superheroes, and it's true because Watchmen is like an ensemble cast thing. You're not really calling out a specific character from that.
And even, I mean, I think some people who were watching the movie took the wrong message from Rorschach.
Oh my god!
Right, that he clearly did some things that were sort of kind of cool. He was his own guy, but he was smelly and dirty and.
I think that's actually something like an idea that has been kicking around my head in media in general a lot, which is that people taking entirely the wrong message from a piece of media or something that's somebody's making fun of, right? Some parody or a satire that gets mistaken for or appreciated by the type of people that are being made fun of by it. And I think there's some times on the internet, it's not entirely clear, based off of the type of content that somebody's making, which side of something somebody comes down on.
Right.
And there's always some creators where I watch them and I enjoy them, and I'm like, I don't know if they're making jokes because they think this is funny, or if they're making jokes about the type of person who sounds like this, right?
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting to me.
Yeah.
It's like somebody's not in on the joke, right? And that's what it really is, and you don't know who it is.
I want to get back to the specific example of Watchmen because I'm conflicted about that, because clearly he is his own man, and there's something to be said for not bending to the whims and conventions and the expectations of society, like to sort of go your own way, right?
But he's also like weirdly puritanical.
Yes.
For all the horrible things he does, he has a weird sort of moral absolutism about like decadence.
And I get it because of how he was raised, right? Like he's clearly damaged.
Yeah.
And there's something almost heroic in being able to overcome that, to fight for what he thinks is right. I'm just not sure that he's necessarily, like, you know, it's like Dexter, right?
Yeah.
Dexter, who's a killer of serial killers, does that make him a good guy?
It's...
You know what? It's that, and he's interesting. Clearly, Rorschach is interesting because he's not just good or bad.
Yeah,
right?
He's a well-written, complex character, and a lot of people don't view him in the complexity that he deserves.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a few great lines, right? Yeah. I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me.
Yeah.
Or something. I'm paraphrasing. I'm screwing up. It's been a lot of years since I read it, so I apologize if I messed that up. You know what? Then I'm gonna go with Swamp Thing.
You're gonna go with Swamp Thing?
I'm gonna go with Swamp Thing because Alec Holland was just such a sympathetic character, and the pain of discovering. I mean, that was the beginning of Alan Moore's run, where he discovers. Oh, spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert for Swamp Thing, a very old
40-year-old
I have
comic
no
book
clue.
now. 30-something-year-old comic book that he realizes that he never had the humanity that he was trying to recover. And I don't know, it was just so powerful. And it was just that first story, the anatomy lesson, was so clever. And it was so grounded in human emotion. I thought, I'd never read a comic book story that good at the point when I saw it. I didn't even realize it was possible to do something with comic books like that. The medium had just...
So there we go.
I don't know. I'm a bit of a loss for words.
Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing's my favorite superhero.
Awesome.
The green. Okay.
All right. So we've got a comment from Daniel O. This is a really good quality. So we talked about last week having people let us know how things are going with them in the times of COVID-19. Yeah. And would say that we would read some of them out. So Daniel O did a couple great things. First of all, timestamps, much appreciated. And then a long and just a really sort of wonderful comment. It was, a lot of fun to read. We'd love to share it with you guys here. We'd still like to hear from anybody else if anybody wants to share. Right. But, quality over quantity. I think we definitely got something great here. So they say, "Hello, BDCKR. I've watched your channel in the past, back when I grinded Injustice a lot 3 to 4 years ago. I came back to the game recently at the beginning of this year, and have just started watching your stuff again during this pandemic. I used to hate these podcasts because they felt long and rambly, but now they feel really short and fun. Maybe it's an age thing." And first off, I want to say I really love that. If somebody moves in one direction, we know this isn't for everybody, but for somebody to start not liking it and then come to it later and enjoy it a lot more, I'm obviously just happy that anybody enjoys it, but that's pretty much the ideal order for it to go in, as opposed to it getting worse, right?
That's true.
So that's awesome.
Because we're never if it's getting worse, we're never going back. I mean, we're just different people now than we were then. Yeah.
And then it continues. The comment continues. "I'll take your invitation in the video to share a little about myself. I'm an ethnic Korean, born and raised in the States, but currently living in Korea. While coronavirus numbers have died down here, they recently flared back up due to a long holiday weekend and some irresponsible club attendance. I've had online schooling for around 3 months, but aside from that, society has made a slow return to normal. You'll see a lot of people on the street all wearing masks, though this isn't a big cultural shock compared to the West because a lot of Koreans wear them for yellow dust anyway in the spring. People are going to work via public transportation, and restaurants open with surprisingly little seating changes. I'm proud of my country for how we handled the pandemic, but understand it's still a struggle here and a lot of places in the world. I'm glad to hear you all are doing well, and I hope to continue timestamping at least until I get busier when things truly return to normal. Komoda. So yeah, just a wonderful comment. I mean, we can talk a little bit about it.
So can I say first, though? Yeah. He tricked you into saying Komoda.
He did.
I said it too.
Not at the end of the video.
So, I mean, the idea of it, I mean, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but now we've all of a sudden become not...
Yeah, our joke is, because Miracle Man, as we were just talking about, says Komoda to turn to and...
Back and forth, yeah.
From Miracle Man to... what's his actual person name? I don't remember.
Oh, Mike Moran.
Mike Moran, yeah. There was a Nerdwriter video on Alan Moore, and he calls it Marvel Man for a lot of it because it was Marvel Man and then turned to Miracle Man
because of copyright
things. But right. So there's a Nerdwriter video on that recently, and he mispronounces Komoda. If anybody wants to see if you can find our comment somewhere in the comments section, there's one there.
Oh, so Alan Moore mispronounced it, or
no, not Alan Moore. The
Nerdwriter.
Nerdwriter mispronounced it.
How do you mispronounce that? How hard is that?
He said Katoma.
That sounds like a tumor.
It does.
Teratoma. The tumor with like teeth and eyeballs and hair and stuff.
Yeah, a little nasty.
Okay.
But, yeah. No, but
so now you've stopped becoming a YouTube. Don't want to say personality. YouTube content producer. Creative?
No, call me a YouTube personality. Call me Lord YouTube.
So we got it. You guys, we said it again. We tricked both of us. So no, but what's funny was this is what happened in the story. Another spoiler alert. When they had to trick him, they had to trick Dickie Dauntlett's Kid Miracle Man into saying the magic words to lock him up, to keep him from, because he was so powerful.
Yeah.
And he was physically unstoppable. I mean, this solves one of the questions that people have always struggled with Superman, is if he's really that powerful, how do you have any kind of anything at stake in the story if he could just pummel the crap out of anybody?
Yeah, and kryptonite is a much worse solution than failable mind and trickability.
Right.
Yeah.
It was really clever. And so I'm just... It's funny that because we were talking about Miracle Man now, that it just came up in this. I think this might have been the first time it was in one of the comments or questions.
That's true. Yeah. But this was great. We're glad to hear it. Definitely a lot of other places have handled things better than America, certainly. But I think even Canada, right? A bunch of different places have handled things a lot better. One thing...
And are you considering Canada better or worse?
Better than the U.S.
And not as good as Korea.
Not as good as Korea, for sure. Not as good as South Korea, because South Korea did great. And one of the things that we're going to do with this video, I think, is I'd love to include a link to a sort of mix of article interactive piece in the description by Nikki Case was the person who coded it and helped write it, and there was an epidemiologist whose name I'm forgetting, but there will be obviously credits in it, that does a really, really good job of explaining a lot of stuff about COVID. And we'll have that linked as a resource in the description of this video.
I think part of the burnout, for me at least, is because my job requires me to stay up to date and stuff, is that the information is coming out in the actual useful information is coming out in dribs and drabs.
Yeah.
But the amount of information that you had to dig through to get at it is huge. So you could actually listen to COVID information, COVID newscasts, all day, all the time, without finding very much new about it. So a resource like that you just mentioned, that again you're going to link in the description, is so much more useful, because then they're able to consolidate a lot of that information and put it in a way to give it context.
And it's a lot of the practical information about understanding what's happening, not by the numbers, not by the news cycle, not by what, bad decision is being made recently or the infection cases. It's a way of sort of from the ground up understanding what is going on and then what we can do about it. Yeah,
I think that's it. When you mention numbers, one of the hardest thing about this has been so many different numbers, and I feel like that when people make an argument for or against what's happening, you can make the numbers say whatever you want. I think the fundamental thing is aside from whether the decision was right in terms of what was done around the world,
Yeah.
aside from whether it was luck or whether it was just it was because of the interventions that people made, that the one point that you can't miss, where, you know, I think the only people that are absolutely 100% wrong are people who are saying, yeah, it's not a big deal, who cares?
Yeah.
They are 100% wrong, because out of everything else, you cannot ignore the fact that a first world country, Italy,
Yeah.
had treatment that could save lives for people who were literally dying, that were reduced to battlefield triage.
And like mass graves and stuff.
Yeah, so maybe in a city, maybe in a localized area, but never in a country where the capacity to care for the people that were sick were overwhelmed. So that you actually literally had to decide, this person will die and not get treatment because we just can't give treatment anymore.
Yeah.
That has not happened in, I want to say decades. It feels like it should be even longer than that, where you're actually so overwhelmed that you could have treated them if they come in a couple days earlier.
Yeah,
and there were
but
few
now,
people on ventilators.
Now you can't.
Yeah. So argue about the decision. I think the absolute wrong thing to do is to say that it wasn't worth getting, not excited, but just getting concerned about, to feel like that you need to do something different to keep that from happening to every other country that wasn't Italy. Italy was our canary in the coal mine that gave us some warning that something big was happening, and we needed to do something. And you can argue about whether it was useful. And I think ultimately the social isolation, which is really physical isolation, it was a good idea in principle, but I feel like that there's a chance that I'll look back on saying it was a bad idea, not because the idea was bad, but because people screwed it up on the back end of it.
Yeah.
By not doing it long enough, or by not shifting away from that in a way that made sense, where we could still be protected, right?
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things at the resource. I've shown it to people I haven't had an opportunity to show it to, unfortunately. We'd be able to talk about it, but it actually covers a lot of that too. Yeah, so you'll be seeing it along with our viewers.
Okay.
We'll be able to reconvene, and everybody can talk about it. It's like a book club. For anybody who checks it out, who's made it this far and who's willing to look at it. Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely interesting times, and you know, thank you so much for the comment. That was great. You know, start to finish, right?
Yeah.
Timestamps, everything, and we would love to see anybody else if they wanted to share. Similarly, that's, you know, but you have big boots to fill.
All right.
Whoever's commenting next has a big, wonderful comment to top.
All right, so we got a couple minutes left of gameplay. I'm just going to read something that was related to the situation that we talked about last week, where there's the black jogger who was hunted down and shot by 2 white people in Georgia. Mm-hmm. So there's an article. I'll link it. I can't remember who the author was, but there's I'm just going to read a little bit of a clip from this.
To end it on a light note.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, light note. But the implied terms of the racial contract are visible everywhere for those willing to see them. A 12-year-old with a toy gun is a dangerous threat who must be met with lethal force. Armed militias drawing beads on federal agents are heroes of liberty. Struggling white farmers in Iowa taking billions in federal assistance are hardworking Americans down on their luck. Struggling single parents in cities using food stamps are welfare queens. Black Americans struggling in the cocaine epidemic are a bio-underclass created by a pathological culture. White Americans struggling with opioid addiction are a national tragedy. Mm-hmm. Poor European immigrants who flocked to an America with virtually no immigration restrictions came the right way. Poor Central American immigrants evading a baroque and unforgiving system are gang members and terrorists. So the point I took away from that was that it's... I struggle with this a little bit because the meaning of racism has evolved in the time that I've been alive.
Yeah.
And evolved in like the right way, that it makes a lot more sense to talk about it in the
systemic sense.
It's systemic sense instead of individual, because I think we've become aware enough of it that you know, you can no longer say it's only racism if somebody declares a racist reason. It's like Michael Scott in The Office. I declare bankruptcy. Oh, yeah.
It's interesting. I forget what the specific term is, but it's new racism that's talked about in like psychology and like sociology, where part of new racism actually involves people saying that we've moved beyond racism, that people aren't racist anymore. Right. And that part of racist sentiment is people who are saying, no, there's no more racism. Right? We fixed it. There's no slavery anymore, so it's good. And, I'm not saying exactly that, because if somebody were to say there's no more slavery anymore, they would also be incorrect.
Yeah, right. But prison system,
or even just literal slavery.
I guess so.
Not in, like, the United States of America legally, but...
Yeah.
There is still definitely slavery.
I was thinking more along the lines of those... There's a union that was striking, and they took the prison workers and paid them like a ridiculously small wage and got them to do the same job. Mm-hmm. I'd have to look up the circumstances.
Racism not fixed. Definitely. Lots of work to be done still. Stay vigilant, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I just read that. It was very powerful. I really appreciate when writers are so succinct and get to the point and really clearly illustrate that. Mm-hmm. They make something more clear and not more confusing. I think I find those kind of writers that use a lot of jargon. So this comes back to your original term. Using too much jargon, I think, actually takes away from the point. I guess unless you are in the know and in the group, to be able to, parse out all the funky words.
So there we go. We're out of video. We're out of time, and I'm a few minutes past a D&D session that got started. That's gonna be here for me when we're done here. So we've got some things to say. Quick shout out to Eliza. I don't have a nickname for you this week, Caton. Listen, it can't all be winners. This shout out has been brought to you by a lack of creativity.
And the letter C and the letter R.
Yeah. We'd like to also give a huge thank you to everybody who continues to support us on Patreon. So that's Console, Peasant, and Edwoon, who are supporting us at the highest last word tier. Mohammed Albshaiti at the Your Message Here tier. Shawn Farrell, Daniel Simonson, Aaron Maule, Michael DeVries, Brandon C., and Irvin Ruiz, who are supporting us on the credited level. And Chris Wolf and Scarlett NB at the gratitude level. Thanks so much for your support, and thanks so much to all of you for watching or listening. We'll see you next time. Komoda.